and then I'll jump back in a second and get these emails forwarded.
Yep.
We had a couple last minute ads.
Okay. So we haven't started any of the presentations.
No,
Yeah, just
I was waiting for
professionalism
them to
is that
get in.
first one.
Yep.
And then they have the documents that correspond. The workbook is what's going to correspond with our presentations that we're going to go over. So if you want to pull up that workbook document, and it should correlate with this first presentation to begin on professionalism.
And if you have questions, you can type them in the chat as we go, and I will monitor the chat.
Awesome. Okay. I'm getting it pulled up, so just give me a second. Do y'all see the presentation? Anybody?
No, no.
No. What? How about now?
Yes, if you want to
Yep.
enter into full screen.
Yep. Awesome. I see it still.
Yes.
I can see it, but it's not in full screen.
Really? What do you see? Sorry.
It's, I mean, we can still see it, so.
Okay.
Just the PowerPoint view is not full screen.
Right. Yeah.
It's
your
not
PowerPoint.
slideshow screen is what I think, which, yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Gotcha. Okay, but you can see that for the most part.
Yep.
All right. So U.S. lacrosse, it's the fastest growing game. It happens to be, like I said, one of the fastest growing game in the country, and that is why we're hoping this training gets you hooked and ready to become the best official you can be. Before getting into the nuts and bolts of the sport and officiating the sport, you want to make sure you're more familiar with the U.S. lacrosse and girls lacrosse, and the concept that as a community we expect high standards of professionalism and ethics. All right, so our main focus as officials is safety, fun, and fairness. As officials, our role is to ensure that that all participants leave each game with a positive experience. So safety is our #1 job, and that we keep the athletes safe through calling fouls and managing the game. That we are unbiased influence in the game should ensure fairness to all participants. And finally, we hope that all participants, including ourselves, have an enjoyable experience. That is important because we want y'all to continue to come back and officiate even after you've gone to college and come back. We hope that y'all come back because y'all had a fun experience. All right, this is our pathway to certification. So we strive for all officials servicing this game in our country to be a U.S. lacrosse certified. Each year you must meet a certain criteria and requirements in order to gain and maintain your certification. So being a current official member of the U.S. lacrosse will be your first step. So most of y'all, if you play or are coaches, you probably already have a U.S. lacrosse membership. You would go in and edit, update that you wanted to do a joint membership so that you're an official as well. So you will be expected to also take and pass the U.S. lacrosse annual rules test, which is found on the U.S. lacrosse e-learning platform. And we will go through all of that as well, which you have to become a official as well through U.S. lacrosse first in order to access the e-learning. Only U.S. lacrosse members have access to the rules exam. And each year you must complete your annual professional development online, which includes your annual rules interpretation. The rules tend to change a bit each year, and keeping up with the most recent changes as well as the trends in the game is important in keeping current as an official. Your job as an official is to know the rules, enforce the rules, and know how to, manage and place the fouls accordingly. And so finally, each year you will have to hold a current U.S. lacrosse rating. You are expected to have an on-field, hands-on training during which you will be evaluated on your skills as a women's lacrosse official. And then at that time, you will be given a rating. Ratings will have a varying expiration date based on your skill set. We have recently updated if you are rated in the second half of the year, so the third and fourth quarter, then your rating is going to be good through the end of the fourth quarter the following year, and vice versa. If you were to get rated anywhere in the first and second quarter, then your rating would be good through the following year through the end of the second quarter. But we'll go over more of that as we're going through this and you're getting rated. All right, so I believe Kendra provided you all with a USA lacrosse certification checklist. You want to be able to keep up with the checklist and keep it handy, and remember to complete each part as you're completing your steps. All right. So we need to let the candidate know that each level has a skill set that is required. That, we have level 2, and then we have level 1s, and level 2 skills and level 3 skills. All the skills levels are different. So level 1s typically are they can be beginning officials, capable of controlling, youth and middle school and even lower level high school games. So typically level 1 to do JV games. And then it moves up from there, level 2, level 3. So level 2, you're able to do varsity, low level varsity, so maybe some D2, D3, and then so on. So you're capable of doing all levels. And then level 3, typically you have to know how to do 3-man in order to become a level 3. 3-man is where you have 3 officials on the field versus the 2. For most of you on this call and this training, if you're a high school kid, you are only capable of getting a junior official rating. So when we do your ratings, we'll evaluate your skill level and, give you a rating based off of, are you able to do 7th, 8th, and all youth level games, or do we feel you're only capable of doing 5th, 6th, and below? And all that will be communicated as you're going through your rating and getting your rating done. Any questions right now on the rating levels? All right, so as I was saying, the junior officials, for most of you who are in high school, will get that. That's for anybody that's under 18. Once you're 18, you can rate out to any level at that point. So again, we hope that you all have a fun and safe experience as you're going through this and want to continue to officiate even past when you're turn 18 and aspire to go to a level 1 and level 2 and so on. Level 1s are able to rate up to a level 3 without rating as a level 2. So say you've started doing JV and as a level 1 and you've been coming out to maybe shadow some varsity games and trying to learn the 3-man, you do have the ability to skip from level 1 to go right to level 3 if you've learned 3-man. An official does not have to pass through each level on the way, but will be evaluated on the skills required for each level. All right, so official certification path. When you begin your path, it is determined by your skill level. This is the same slide it looks like. Sorry. All right, some key benefits for certified officials. So it is very important, and we will always tell you to make sure you're making sure your U.S. lacrosse registration and membership is renewed. They do cover you for insurance if you get hurt on the field, and if you're officiating out there and you're not a member, then they obviously will cover this, and you're actually not certified. So I'm not going to go through these insurance coverages, but here is what they do cover. And again, if you do get hurt and you were assigned some games already, you can submit to get game fee reimbursement that you will miss out on because you've gotten hurt. All right, 5 core concepts. All right, these are the skills areas on which an official's competency is based on. All are necessary for you to become a certified and maintain your certification. So we'll just show here, this is, we'll look at the knowledge and judgment. So can you call major and minor fouls quickly and keeping the game safe? Game management, mechanics, penalty, and administration. Properly penalty administration, your mechanics, it's loud, your whistles are loud. Comportment, communication, and teamwork. You show respect for all in the game. You're composed, demeanor, you're receptive to feedback. You know how to communicate with the coaches when they have a question. You're not allowing yourself to get flustered, because they're yelling. Coaches are going to do it. And obviously, there's a way they properly should ask questions. So just making sure you're keeping your demeanor and your composure on that. Professionalism and responsibility ethics. So you're on time, not late like I was today. I apologize. So on time, we always ask that you arrive to a game dressed and ready to go at least 30 minutes ahead of time so that you're walking the field, you're checking the nets, you're meeting with your coaches, your captains, you're having time to talk with your partner, talk about things that maybe happened in the game prior. So you just want to make sure you're giving yourself that time. Maybe it's a tournament, there's multiple fields. You want to be able to be there on time, find your field.
Hey, Linda, I'm going to stop you for a second. Are you still sharing your screen because we cannot see your slides?
I am.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
It's not sharing.
Okay, hold on. How about now?
No. Oh, wait, hold on. It's coming. No. And they can't follow along on that. There we go. Right there. You got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. All right, well, I got to go back now. Whoops. Give me a second.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Are you still seeing it now?
Yes.
All right, so we were talking about the 5 core concepts. And then, so proper uniform, which we will go through that, but typically it's black shorts or skirt, or if it's full, black pants. And your stripes, if you're a youth, you're able to wear your orange shirt or neon green, which are typically handed out at a tournament. And then black shoes, as you're starting off, we don't expect completely black shoes, but as you continue to want to grow and move up in your ratings, that is something that we are required to make sure we have all black shoes. And then positioning, fitness, and field coverage. So you're able to keep up with the play, position relative to the ball, and know areas of responsibility. So it is important that you are keeping up with your fitness. I like to tell our officials that, for example, for me, I'm getting older, but the kids are staying the same age, right? Because they're just graduating, we're bringing in new kids. So it's important to keep up with your fitness because this game just continues to get faster. So what is professionalism? Yeah, the skill, you have good judgment, what, the behavior that is expected from a person, who is trained as well, having a positive attitude, being respectful. So all of that. Some keys to being a true professional. Excellence, conduct, attitude, character, competency. Looks like we're supposed to discuss with some professionalism. So if you'll just throw in the chat some words that you think of when you think of professionalism. And I can't see the chat, so Beth, if you want to monitor the chat and just kind of read some of the things that everybody's putting in there.
Yes. So if you'll just type in the chat what you think professionalism is in your mind from a player perspective, a parent perspective, or an official.
Are we getting some?
Here we go.
All right, awesome.
Fairness, informed, courteous, respect, calm and composed, leadership, correctly dressed, sportsmanship, timely, mature, leadership, fair, knowledgeable, educated, well-rounded. Know what you are doing. Exactly.
Awesome. Those are all really good and definitely all factors that makes a person be professional. All right. Thank you. All right. So code of ethics, we talked about respect, value the opinions and views and roles of others, right? Fairness, make sure we're making decisions without favoritism or prejudice. Teamwork, or cooperative and coordinated efforts to work towards a common goal. You'll see us a lot of times coming in, bringing in your partner. We're working together. We're discussing what happened. If we have any questions, we're helping each other set up plays, right? Or not plays. Wow. Fouls. Communication creates shared understanding. Legality does not violate the law. And conflict of interest avoids any action which leads to a real or perceptive conflict of interest. So as you go through the training and you pass and you get certified, any schools you play for, or if you have a kid that plays for a team or a sibling that plays for one of the youth teams, we'll ask that you're blocking them out, right? Because those are considered a conflict of interest. So preparation for the season. So, athletes that are participating in our game, they spend many hours preparing for each game. I know some of you just got back from practice, so, you're devoted a lot of time to practicing. So you'll have a lot of preseason, and you'll devote a great deal of time and hard work in becoming, the best that you can be as a player or an athlete. And we should expect the same for ourselves as an official. So leading up to the season, we need to prepare both not only mentally, but also physically. So mental preparation. So being an expert on the rules and their interpretations are gained through reading and knowing the current U.S. Rule book, and as well as the U.S. Lacrosse Training Manual. So I can say, like for myself, anytime right before I go out to a game, I am just going through reading, reading the rules again, just making sure that, hey, like I haven't missed something, because like I said, things change every year. And the other thing is we, from, high school to the youth game is very different, even to the first and second grade game. So someone who is doing, NCAA and then, comes off an NCAA game and then does a 7th, 8th grade game, they have to refresh themselves and making sure that they're going out there and calling the right rules for that level of game. So each year, we have a rules interpretation video, and it's created to inform you of both new rules as well as any points of emphasis that are being focused on that are coming this season. And always watch and understand this prior to your season, but it's also helpful, for you to refer back to throughout your season. So we will have a rules interpretation meeting, and this year will be in person. Typically, it is in January after they have a LAX convention, because that's where they go through the new rules. So, and throughout the season and year, rules updates and memos may come out through U.S. Lacrosse, National Rules Interpreter, or your state association. Be sure to keep up with those and be current, and just keep a printed copy with you at your game. I like to, on my phone, I have the youth rules downloaded, and I have our U.S. Lacrosse training manual downloaded to my phone. So anytime I go to the game, I have that. Also have the printed copy of my rules book. Oops, I went backwards here. All right, so before your first game, you want to be sure to be in some practice time, get in some practice time at either a nearby team's practice or preseason scrimmage, which, we'll have plenty of upcoming tournaments. We have a lot of fall ball. So typically those are the times to get back in the game. I just had my first game, last week, and I was like, oh, you have to remember things like, oh, I have to make sure I'm going out wide to make sure I'm seeing the play and not getting caught up in the play. But the fall and your preseason is where you want to be able to do that and practice and get mentally prepared for the spring season. All right, so talked about physical preparation, and like I said, we as officials continue to get older, but the kids stay the same age. So fitness is an important part of your skill set. You want to start your own fitness plan well before the season. So as you continue to want to move up in the level of officiating, at the NCAA level, we do have a sprint test and a fitness test as well that we have to take. So stretching, when I was younger, I didn't think I needed to stretch. And now that I've gotten older, I definitely stretch. It is very important. We've had many injuries this past season. So it is very important you're getting there early and taking some time to stretch as well. Have a healthy food plan. I don't encourage you to eat a cheeseburger before your game. That's never sits well. So think about, if you're about to go officiate a game and it's going to be fast paced and it's hot outside and you have 3 games back to back, you may not want to eat that cheeseburger. All right, cardiovascular exercise, so making sure you're getting out, running, and then preseason practice games. Again, we have all kinds of fall ball and tournaments where we're able to get on games and, kind of just get physically prepared for that. All right, so we want to dress for success. Kendra, are we doing breakout groups?
Yeah, we don't have to do the breakouts per se here, but am I on? This is new.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just not on
Yes.
a video. That's fine. Okay, so yeah, I'll just take these next couple slides as we're going to do a little activity we can just kind of jot down on our own. But dressing for success, like some of the things Linda went through with this so far is professionalism, and part of that is showing up early. Obviously, how you present yourself and your uniform is going to be how you present yourself as soon as you walk on the field. So many of us in the training, as well as those of us who have been doing this for a long time, we've worn multiple hats over the years. We were players, we've been coaches, now we're officials, and we're doing those things at the same time. However, when you're in your stripes, you're in your stripes and you're only a ref. Like that's something that, is going to be maybe challenging a little bit to kind of, get used to. But, if you're at the game as a coach, you're in your coaching uniform, so to speak, whatever that may look like. But when you're in your ref, when you're there as a ref, you need to be in your ref uniform, you need to be put together, and you need to be wearing that hat and be showing that that role. So Anyway, you've got your black and white stripes, your kilt, pants, shorts. So starting out, though the women do wear a kilt in the warmer seasons, and the men wear shorts. Starting out, you don't need to purchase a kilt if you have shorts, black shorts that are fine now. High school girls particularly, sometimes those shorts tend to be a little short. So we don't want like running shorts, please. If you could just get, like mid-thigh shorts, basketball shorts or something, then that would be ideal. And then you can get a kilt later on. The golf kilts are typically a good one because they're a little bit longer than the tennis skirts. Black accessories, again, everything we wear is all black on black, from our shoes all the way to our hats. If there's an emblem on something, you can black it out with a black Sharpie. This first year, don't worry about some of those things as well. Just whatever sneakers you have are fine. And then as you progress and you get rated and those kind of things, then we want to work towards getting, all black on black outerwear in the colder months and so on. Your equipment, we have our yellow flag, we have 3 cards, red, green, yellow, and a whistle. Of course, the Fox 40 is the whistle that we have. So it is a particular tone that we need to all match on the field. So Fox 40 whistle is what you're going to need to get. And then we write down, information. You can put masking tape on the back of your card. You get one of those little cards that says, timeout, team 1, team 2, score, team 1, team 2, etc. But not so specific for this first one. So before we go, and here's kind of another, equipment check peek at it, and then we'll go through these impressions. And I'll pull out that doc and try to share my screen. So you've got your whistle, your flag, your cards. This is when you step onto the field for a game. Your rule book. Many of us carry it digitally now, but the one you get from USA Lacrosse, you can keep in your bag, and or your manual. Measuring tape, at the beginning of the year, when we measure sticks, perhaps, pencil, coin, watch, and the sportsmanship card, which usually is on the back of that other card to measure. But their basics for what you will need to get is your Fox 40 whistle and your stripes. Notice our shirts have a collar, and a pocket in the shirt is handy. Definitely you will need a pocket somewhere, but the shirt, as opposed to only in the shorts or the kilt, because it is much more accessible to grab your cards and throw them out if you need to. So let's go ahead. I'm going to try to share my screen and pull up this impressions doc. Let's see. Linda, can you give me control from your end?
Hey, I see your discussion impressions up.
Oh, you did? Okay, let me go back to that then.
Yeah, it's still up.
Is it? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so just take maybe 2-3 minutes, guys, on your own and answer these questions, and then we'll ask for some shout outs. So what are the coaches, parents, players' impression of the officials when you first see them walk onto the field? So think about the things we've talked about in this discussion already. And then in other sports that you've either been a fan at, maybe for siblings or on TV or something like that, what are some of the first impressions that you see with the officiating crew there? So a couple minutes, and then we'll regroup. What about for our chat? Start chiming in, everybody, for some of the things for these two questions. Beth, do we have anything?
Not yet. Okay, they should look calm and look like they know what they're supposed to be doing. That's
Okay, good.
one.
So comportment is good, yes.
Officials remain calm, use the rules to explain the calls to the girls who are learning and parents who are also learning. Be put together, prepared, calm, excited to be there, helpful.
That's a good one, to be excited to also be there.
Yeah.
Think about, I'm a
good.
teacher by day, right? So, you know, when your teacher is just rolling in and just blowing through the info and not excited about anything they're talking about, then it makes it kind of difficult to feel like they're really in it, you know, to do their job and everything too. That's a good one. Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Let's see, we've got officials on time, good communication, be in control. Neutral and getting ready by reading the rules beforehand. Dressed appropriately and seem positive about the game. On time, enthusiastic, confident, collected, happy to be there, in control. Be big on safety for the players. That's a great one as well.
Okay.
Knowledgeable, unbiased, not a pushover. Calm. A lot of calm, collected, I like that. And professionally dressed, lots of professionally dressed.
Yeah.
And
So-
one last one, proactively checking field and equipment.
Okay,
That's
good.
great.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about that too, but that's a great list. So, you know, I think, you know, all those things are quite valuable. I think it's pretty, you know, we feel like it's something that's quite obvious on what does it mean to be a professional, but, you know, this is your job. So sometimes, because it's also the sport we play, the sport we love, the sport we coach, we forget maybe some of those little details about you need to tuck your shirt in, you need to not change from your sports bra into, you know, your player uniform into your ref uniform just right there on the sideline. You know, if you can be a little more discreet, then let's do that. You know, those kind of things, because it's just, we're immersed in lacrosse all the time doesn't mean that this isn't still your job to look and be a professional. Okay, so I think that probably is good for this topic. If there's any questions on this topic, then go ahead and chime in for Beth. And then I'm not sure, when I was fielding those emails at the beginning, Linda, did you go over some of the other things that I sent, or just jump right into this Prezi?
Nope, we just jumped right into professionalism. Nothing else.
Okay, so let me just kind of go back briefly to I'm going to pull up some of the other things that I sent quickly, just so we can be on the same page with all that. So tell me if you can see my screen. I do not know what is visible.
Not yet.
Okay, let me see. I don't know where. You did. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one of the documents that I sent you all. If you are an adult official, you will be going for your level 1 officials training and rating. If you are a high schooler, you'll be going for your youth rating. So there's a workbook for both. However, the youth is just a little smaller because some of the rules have a little nuance to them specific to the youth game, whereas the level 1 has all the rules in a little more detail. So they're kind of the same, so to speak, but then also, you know, the youth, you will be, you know, honing in on a few things that are particular to that game. So just to kind of hit, though, you know, some of the things at the beginning, you know, we're going to cover Professionalism, we did rules 1 through 12, so we'll get through several today and then do the others in person on Wednesday. The youth rules specifically we'll probably go into also on Wednesday. This certification checklist is also one of the documents that I sent that's just a little more comprehensive in all. It has those same kind of things. So we want to get our US Lacrosse membership. Most of us are probably US Lacrosse members in some capacity already, with being a player or maybe also a coach or something like that. However, you want to make sure that we also get identified with USA Lacrosse as an official. So, there'll be some member services, contact there and tell them we need to add that designation to your membership. It will not cost you any additional fee other than what you may have already paid for a member already. So it's the same one-time thing. They just designate you also as an official, and that goes with the insurance things that Linda listed out in that presentation earlier. The online rules course, so I'll send you the information on where all these things are following, but there's an online rules course that every official has to take. It highlights all the things from, kind of what we started with today that we'll go through all the way through the course in person on Wednesday, but it hits it at a little higher level. So online trading course is a mandatory thing. Your annual classroom training, guess what? You're in it right now for the first time officials. Your US Lacrosse annual certification rules exam, we take those in January when the new rules are interpreted at the convention. Some of you may have seen that email come out already from USA Lacrosse on what the new rules are going to be. We may or may not cover them in detail in this class, but we will practice them in the fall, and then in detail, once we have the full interpretation, we will go over them as a group with a mandatory meeting to kick off the season at the end of January after, again, that convention where all the officials come together and they give us the full interpretation of how everything went through the fall play and et cetera, et cetera. And then you have your on-field rating, which is going to entail, once you do your training with us in person and the Zoom call and the in-person, those are your classroom hours. You have all your other items that I just mentioned checked off the list. Then there's some tournaments this fall in a few weeks, starting in October, I believe, Linda, yes, that she will be in contact with, and you will go on for some shadowing games. And then you shadow ideally 3 games. And then you will do an observation game in which you get feedback formally from your rater, which would be an experienced official. And then you go for your rating, which is a formal evaluation of you. And you still get feedback, but it's not going to be maybe every couple plays, every timeout, every this or that. It's more of, you're on your own and we're on the sideline, taking notes and things, and we'll talk to you at the beginning of the game, at halftime, and at the end of the game. Likely would be those instances, and that is your rating. So all of those things take place kind of in that process. And then, you will take your rules exam, but we'll have to all take it, new or old, again at the January when the official 2023 rules have kicked off. Okay, so that was a lot. This first day in the course is a lot of information dump, and these are kind of some of the administrative items just to kind of knock out of the way. But a separate document was provided in the attachments. You can print that off and reference it. It's got a little more detail for you. So any questions on that, please go ahead and send those on in the chat. And Beth, you can just stop me briefly if we need to field some of those, okay?
Yes.
So professionalism, this is again from the workbook, but this is what we already covered. So, dealing with arriving to your game, first impressions, your uniform, etc. What equipment are you supposed to have? We talk through all that. Role of an official at each game. We have our fun, fairness, and safety. And then as we keep going, these are some of the other things we're going to get to. So I'm going to pause here and then go to some of the other things we're going to talk about. One of which is this one here. Okay, are we seeing this? Learning assets document?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is the document that will tell you where to go on your USA Lacrosse. Now they changed, the website is usalacrosse.com, but it will take you, like the website will take you to the same area, and it should look very similar. So you're going to go through here. It says when prompted, you have your account credentials. If you need to change and update that not change, but add that designation, here's the member services that you would contact so they can add official to your designation. And then that also allows you to, every fall when we renew, it says what rule book do you want, the youth or the high school. The youth always now comes out in a digital free copy PDF. So I suggest to get just the girls in FHS rule book, and then that will come in a hard copy for you. You could carry it in your bag, and then know that the youth rules, we've got some separate nuances that apply to that game, but it's the full high school game with some modifications anyway, right? So get that rule book when you're able to choose it. They usually roll in like December, which unfortunately we need them now with training, but they come a little bit later with the updates. To enroll in a course, so this is where you would take that online officials course that's part of your mandatory training. So you've got your catalog, my courses, and so on. I'm just going to kind of go through briefly here, and then you have this so that you know where to find that information when you go try to get to your online course. So you bring in, your course name, your catalog. You can also click through some of these menus for officials and find it that way. And then you find your online course and so on. The setup, I don't know if it's quite the same this year now that they changed to USA Lacrosse. However, it's a free course. So if you find that you have to pay for anything, then just make sure or if you don't see it, make sure that they have you designated as an official so that all those courses and documents and things as an official will now populate with your membership. Okay, if that makes sense. But no, nothing should be any additional costs if, once you're in a part of USA Lacrosse. Okay, so just wanted to kind of go over that document, make sure everybody was on the same page with that. And then let's see, workbook, assets, certification checklist. Again, that's a little bit more detailed than what was in your workbook. Impressions. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears. We're going to go on to equipment if everybody's ready to roll. Beth, any questions?
No, we had a couple, but I was able to answer those. Just if you are an adult, it is the NFHS rule book, not the NCAA. And then the website again is usalacrosse.com.
And are we seeing my next Prezi field equipment, uniforms, and game personnel?
No, we see your email.
We see your email.
My email? Oh, boo. Okay, hold please. Let's see. Anything now? What about now?
No, still your email.
Okay. All right, well, I'll pull it up then from, I'll just go back and get it. What about now?
No.
No?
Nope.
No.
All right, well, let me just stop. Can I stop presenting and start over again?
There we go.
Okay.
You're just not in full slideshow. There
So
we go.
Okay, now we're going to go into field equipment, uniforms, game personnel. So again, if you have your workbook opened up side by side to this, then you can reference some of the things as we go through, take some notes. I know it's only a digital at this point, but you know, again, just a lot of kind of nuance. A lot of us, if we're familiar with the game, then you know these are things that or just kind of be a review or maybe some specific details that you may have been unsure about. But a lot of us have that working knowledge already. So you've got your field. There is a field document that you should have also in your attachments. If you could pull that up and have it handy, it may be also just straight from the workbook. You can look at that and just kind of take a few minutes, and we're going to label all of those field lines. So something of this nature, the one in your workbook is even more blank than this one, but we're going to label all those lines. So I want you to just have some scratch paper, and we'll kind of go through that, take like 2-3 minutes, and then come back in and check. But, you know, as we know, our field is rectangular. We have a solid boundary. It can vary, so there's a little bit of leeway, kind of unusual to our game, where, you know, the length and the width can be within a range as long as it's X long enough or wide enough, right? And so those details are here. There has to be, though, 10 yards behind each goal line, but it can't be more than 20. A lot of times this can become a challenge with us using fields such as the football fields or soccer fields where there's goals backed up right to the boundary. And so as officials, we have to pay attention to those safety concerns and make sure that we're, you know, right on top of that call so that the girls aren't, you know, running into those unsafe areas with full momentum because they're not paying attention to maybe to that soccer goal. They're trying to get the ball. So we have to be, you know, quite mindful of that when we walk the field at the beginning. Those are some of the things that we talk with our partner, make sure we're on top of those calls. There should be at least 2 meters behind each end line. So that's beyond technically the field. A lot of times we don't have that. And then the cones are marking the corners of the field. We really don't have cones to mark the restraining lines. If there are only stripe lines from a football field, sometimes we'll allow it, but technically we don't have any other cones other than the 4 on the corners. Sometimes we will see them for the substitution area and the restraining lines, but otherwise they can just be marked with, you know, a chalk marking or some other you know, identifier, an actual box, paint, something like that. But they may be there if we need it. The younger girls can even play on a half a field where it's split and rotated, but we'll get into some of those details later because the lines are very, very, I mean, there's not many lines. They have different rules. So there's not a full restraining line and all those kind of things. Okay, so let's just take a couple minutes. And you've got your workbook and you've got your field diagram. If you want to sketch it out kind of on the side on some scratch paper, I want us to take maybe 3 to 5 minutes and on your own label all the things on the field. So restraining line, end line, goal line, hash mark, 8 meter, 12 meter, anything you can think of. And then we'll go through these as a group. And like I said, maybe 3 minutes. Shouldn't take us too long. Go. Okay, so that should maybe be enough time for everybody. Let's go through and start looking at this field. If you take a peek at the back here, so here's where you've got, so your goal line is here, right, from the goal. And then, well, the goal line is actually here in the middle of the goal. The goal line extended is where it comes out on either side. And then we want to have that 10 yards in the back. Okay, so the 10 to 20 means the overall length, so it's a little misleading there, but we have to have at least 10 behind there and then 2 beyond that ideally. So your field length, you've got 110 to 140 yards, so that's the full length of the field. Then you've got your width, and then again, notice behind that end line you want from the end, the goal line to the end line, you want it to be 10. That's your minimum. Okay, and then 2 yards beyond that, the table up at the top. And this is where, a lot of times in teams you may realize, we're always telling you guys, you got to step back, got to step back, got to step back. So there has to be 4 meters. There's no line here to indicate that. But the teams and coaches need to know that they have to step back so that the table and the timer people can keep track of what's going on in the game. They track the cards also for us. They are looking at timeouts. They are timing the cards as well. They look at the subs, all that kind of business. Things are happening there, and, the officials on the field as well as the table timer need to be able to see out onto the field as players are coming and going and so on. All right. So do push them back. We constantly, in some games, are having to remind them to move back, move back. The restraining lines are at your 30. If there is a shorter field, we always take the distance out of the middle. All right. There needs to be the full 30 from the restraining to that end line. For safety purposes, we don't want these girls here for that offsides restraining line to be able to check right into, somebody's grill over here at the 12-meter setting up some plays. So if we have to take out the distance, we take it from the middle, so to speak, and it might just be closer to the circle. But most of the fields are pretty good now. And a lot of them are now on the turf, which are those football markings anyway. All right, so field diagram handout, we've got that. You all took a peek at that. TSA, anyone chime in? What does that stand for? Give you 5 seconds. Anybody? Somebody's gonna have to tell me though, because I only see my screen. Anybody? TSA, it's 10 yards right in front of that table.
Team substitute area.
Whoop, whoop, thank you. Team substitution area. Who's allowed in that area?
Only the officials and the substitutes going on the field.
Perfect. Okay, so if the officials have to step in there, sure, but really only the subs. Now, something to be said, and it should only be the eminent sub. They can't just sub or they can't be standing over there hanging out. All right, they need to be ready to go in, and their teammate is either coming off the field or they're about to call that girl off, as play is transitioning, but they can't hang out in the sub box. All right, if they're not ready to sub, they can just take 1 step outside and be back in this area with her team. Okay, that also is the penalty area. So if someone is serving their card, then they will kneel or sit in that area. We ask them to kneel or sit so that they look separate from an imminent sub. All right, and that's something we would talk to the table people at the beginning of the game as well to remind them, please have these players at the, for serving cards to sit or kneel so we can tell the difference. Your team bench area are on either side of the table. Team bench area, you go from the table all the way to their one end line on both sides. The coaching area rather, the team area where all the girls are, but the coaches can travel the full length on their side of the field. Okay, so looking at it a little closer up, just in that particular area by the table, you've got your table, bench, coaching area, behind and over. And then again, that 4 meters is really important for us to get so that we can see what's going on in the field for those people at the table. Okay, unified field, here's a picture of it. It should be in also your rule book and maybe even your workbook now, but relatively new. Linda, any comments on this in our area to make note of? Or Beth, anything that's come up in our area with unified fields?
Yep, sorry, I just realized that. I said, I think last year we only had one that was used in a unified field, and we were notified prior. So typically we'll be notified prior, and I'll go out and check the field. So not something that you will have to worry about, but if you go out there and you realize it's a unified field and you weren't aware of it, just let us know.
Okay. So something we really don't see much of, but could become a player, in years to come as it's becoming to be more of a thing. Okay. Okay, so critical scoring area. So CSA is how you will likely hear us saying it, especially in this training moving forward. So just make a note of that. So this is one of those invisible line areas, if you will, because it's not actually marked on the field. We know where it is because of some of the other markings, but it goes from the 12-meter fan all the way straight back to the end line on the field. Okay, so you'll notice, and most of us are familiar with the two dots that are behind the goal, which represent 8 meters from the goal. All right, so if there's a penalty back there, then they have to be at least 8 meters from goal. So that's where a lot of penalties end up setting up back there. But the critical scoring area, you can have, anyone could be setting up to go to goal and maybe wrapping the goal circle to come around the other side. So the CSA is that area where the team is going to goal. It's where we have our flag up oftentimes, and it can even go be behind the goal in some instances with play. And then that also will indicate some of how we're going to set up based on where the foul occurred because it's in the CSA. Okay. We'll get into fouls and all that jazz next class though, because there's a lot of nuances with that. So the 8-meter arc. So the 8 meter is going to be where these hashes are. Okay, how we refer to them and how you'll communicate with your partner. For instance, if you are the trail official, so at this goal, the trail official would be back here generally, and maybe there's a foul that they call, they're going to communicate to their lead official, red player number 10, whatever foul, first inside hash. So then that's going to indicate to the lead official how to proceed and take on that setup. So first inside hash, and she can indicate or he indicate, which side that's going to be on. But then that also tells the players where they need to move to. The defenders get the adjacent hashes. And so then they'll know where they can go ahead and start setting up and keep everything on time and a nice fluid penalty setup, hopefully, right? So you've got your center hash, second inside, first inside, and then your outside, sometimes also referred to as the hanging hash. So this is your 8 meters from goal, and then your 12-meter fan. And then again, back here are the dots, which are where we set up fouls and such. We'll get into that with penalty administration. The goal circle, you've just got what the radius looks like. The goal line itself comes flush with the posts, and then the ball has to cross wholly this line in order for it to be a goal. All right. So some of the goals that you may see, the flat bottom goals, they don't need any padding, rounded pipes, and then the other one here. Okay. So the bottom angles at the corner, no padding, needs no padding, needs no padding, and then let me see. Okay. Needs padding on this one. I had to move my other meeting icon, but over here needs padding because of the way it is designed. We haven't really run into anything with that, so I don't anticipate that being an issue though. Okay. Next, game personnel. So again, if you want to reference back at your workbook, this should, for the most part, go through and you can kind of jot some particulars down as we go. We'll probably take a break at about the halfway point, so 7:20 right now, so a little bit more, and we'll take a quick break, grab a bite to eat, what have you, okay? All right, so game personnel. So the teams are made up of 12 players on the field. At any one time, one may be a goalkeeper, so occasionally we might see where the goalkeeper gets pulled, they put on an extra field player, so 12 players on the field, 11 Field players plus 1 goalie also would be 12. The head coach, at the beginning when we do our captain's meeting, the head coach has to certify that the eye protection meets standard and that the balls and the goalie helmets also meet the NOXI standards. And then the that's something that we just say, Coach, can you certify all your equipment meets the certified USA Lacrosse certifications? And they say yes, and then that puts the liability so that they are attesting to their team playing in a safe manner and all their equipment meets the appropriate certification. They're responsible for all other personnel actions and behaviors. That includes their full bench decorum, that includes their fans as well as themselves. They can request a timeout, and they have to submit roster with the starters to the table. So that's something typically we don't deal with, other than, you know, if it comes up, we have to make sure that, did you hand off your roster? Yes. But that's not something that the official goes over and like checks off for each team. The teams get together and do that at the table. Okay. But the head coach, so if there's ever an issue with someone on the fan side for a team, then the head coach ultimately could take that penalty. And so, you know, it's in our toolbox. If we need to address that, we can yellow card a fan, and then that would essentially be penalizing the team and the coach and so on. But we'll get into those specifics later. Okay. Game administrator. Ideally, when you go to ref, there is someone separate from just the home team coach or coaching staff dealing with things that are happening on the game. Ideally, it's someone running the field, and any of those issues, if there was something with the fan side, then they would send them out to deal with that initially, if we were to speak to them about it. All right. Team captain. So 1 to several captains can go up for a team. Sometimes there's 1 or 2, sometimes there seems to be like 5 per team, but they'll do the captain's meeting. They can ask for clarification of the rules. Official scorer and timer sit at the table. They do cards, timeouts for us, AP, which is alternate possession, and they also tally the score for us, and we check in to make sure that we agree on all those things. The youth games, as far as like the really young girls, 3rd and 4th grade, then you will see usually just 1 official. And then as you move up through the youth, starting about 5th grade, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then all the way through high school, you will see 2, sometimes 3 on high school games in the playoffs and such. And then definitely for your NCAA college games, sometimes club games, 3 officials as well. And this was something we may do in person, but this was a slide I left in there if we were in person, but we've had to change our logistics the last 2-3 years because of that. So more to come on that later. All right, moving right along, equipment and uniforms. Let me just pause. Let's take a breath. Anything coming up in the chat? Anyone on my team, officiating crew, want to chime in on anything before we go into this next kind of chunk of material?
There's nothing on the chat. I've been monitoring it. So as questions come up, please let me know or let us know in the chat. And if you can't put in the chat, you know, feel free to chime in when Kendra takes a breath.
Or even, I think there's a raise hand feature. From my presenter screen, though, I just see my Prezi. So hopefully, you know, you can get any questions answered those other means. Okay, well, then moving right along. Equipment uniforms. So for both field players and the goalkeepers, we have to make sure that the cross, any of their personal equipment, and their uniform all meet the rules in the rule book. So for instance, the field players, they have a certain length that their lacrosse stick is supposed to be. A lot of times at the very beginning of the season, we will do a measurement, maybe at the first game, to make sure that they're, you know, between that length. The ball must move freely in the pocket. The top of the ball we have to see above the sidewall after pressure is applied. And then I think that's one of the rule changes actually. But if there's any rule changes coming up, like I said, we'll either hit it at the end as a summary or for sure address it later in fall play and the official rulings for 2023 season. So just keep that in mind. If I go ahead and speak to, you know, what we're presenting, know that we will hit those little changes when we get to them, okay? But nonetheless, the ball has to move freely in the pocket, the front and back side. And then the goalkeeper stick has a little more length to it if necessary, can have synthetic or mesh pocket, and then and mesh now is a thing also for a lot of crosses, but ball must move freely there as well. The goalkeeper stick is pretty big. There's not a lot of room for it not to move freely unless the netting is just done like some peculiar way. But lots of different field player crosses we see now. These are fairly kind of old technology, if you will, but you know, the heads of the crosses look very different, the stringing, and there's a lot of things we kind of tend to look out for some of those field player sticks with the stringing and such like that. Let's see if we can get this to pull up. Let me know if things are still fluid on that end. Are we seeing this?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right. Now this is still, even though it's 2018, it was still in there from a year ago.
So we're not seeing the video.
Oh, it's not playing?
No, not yet.
No, it's not playing.
Of course. Do you see this?
I only see the page with the link.
Oh, the lake.
Yeah, your presentation. We see your presentation,
I see.
but not the YouTube video. So you
Oh,
might have
link, I
to
see.
switch. Yeah.
Okay. This Teams is my nemesis. Okay. Let me go back. Yeah?
Yes. Now we can.
Okay. So again, so some of this might be little nuances that we'll address formally when we go on to our field. So just a quick peek at that. Well, I'll probably have to go back to my screen share just a moment. Let's see. All right, are we back on my Prezi?
Yes. We're
Right.
back.
Okay, so, you know, again, in person, ideally we would go through this, but you'll do it when you have your field training. So, you know, no worries on that. But one of the things that we want to make sure is that we can see some of that ball above the sidewall. All right, so, you know, a legal stick could mean that the pocket's too deep. It could mean that the length is too short or too long. It could mean that there's the stringing is incorrect. Okay, so what are we going to do if we are at a stick check at the beginning of the game? What are we going to do? Somebody chime in. What do you think we do? Don't be shy. Somebody chime in. Turn it on. Bill, what you got?
Tell the coach.
Okay, so we're gonna tell the coach. So think about at the beginning of the game, could they have time to fix it? If it's a stringing issue, possibly. If it's just loose, of course. All right, if it's the wrong length, probably not. And they just need to play with a different stick. And that stick would come out of the game altogether, and we would keep it at the table to make sure they don't get into the game with it. But you know, that likelihood is pretty slim, I would say. But you know, if they can go ahead and fix it before the game starts, then great. If not, they can check a different stick and play with that until halftime, in which case then we could recheck the stick. But essentially it would sit out for a whole half and or the remainder of the game if it happens, you know, in the second half, if where there is an illegal stick, you know, something of that nature. But hopefully at the beginning of the game, we would always want them to try to fix it, because ultimately our game, especially at the younger levels, is for the kids to play. All right, so we will do our best to make sure that we can help that game move along. All right.
If
So
it's illegal, where do you keep it, Kendra?
I'm sorry, what?
I said if it's illegal, where does the stick go?
Oh, the table. Did I not say that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it would stay at the table if it cannot be fixed, and then we could fix it at halftime, or check it again rather at halftime, if they were able to do it then, or if it happens after the half, then it would have to stay out the rest of the game. And we put it at the table so we know then that they're not using it in the game once we've already declared it as an illegal stick. Okay. Okay, uniform. So field players, we'll just hit this pretty quickly because it's kind of on the coaching side. They also should have this, you know, when they're coming to the games. But jersey, they have kilt shorts or pants, same dominant color. And really where I think we get into trouble is in the colder months when they start wearing undergarments. So the team should be wearing the same undergarment that should match also their uniform. So if one girl's wearing long sleeve blue Under Armour and they're choosing to wear long sleeves, then they all need to be wearing blue. They can't be wearing blue and then a red and then a gray, etc. So it needs to kind of make sense that they're all matching, and that's how it's written in the rule book. Again, we don't want them to not play for something like a uniform. So we do the best we can to tell them to make it, you know, uniform across all players, and then we try to, you know, get the game moving, of course. There is a minor penalty we could assess at the beginning of the game if they can't fix it, but it makes it definitely easier for us to be able to make the proper calls, particularly when looking at offense versus defense, scoring, offsides, that kind of thing. Goalkeeper jersey, one of the
I wanted to just chime in on there. So like for the youth levels, especially during the tournaments, it's cold. They're just trying to get out there and play. Like we're not a stickler on that. So this is really like, you know, when you get into the high school level, you know, we want to make sure we're able to correct it.
That's true. Yeah. And those youth girls, like we just want them to play, you know, so we can tell the coach, hey coach, you know, try to make, you know, progress as your team develops into making this happen or whatever the issue may be. But yeah, we want those teams to play. The goalkeeper, one of the biggest things I see at all levels, but oftentimes the youth, the most part is that the jersey for the goalkeeper needs to be over the pads. Okay, that's something that it needs to, we need to be able to see the color for one, and as well as we need that pad to be held a little more in place with the jersey over it, all right, for safety reasons. So that's probably one of the main things to keep an eye out for. The bottoms are supposed to be a neutral color, the same as the team, or white, black, or gray. You know, I think they're pretty good about that, but, you know, consider, you know, just again, like Linda said, tournaments, youth level, where we just want the kids to play. High school, we might be a little more, you know, particular, assess some sort of minor on that. But wearing it over the chest shoulder equipment is probably the biggest thing to look out for, being a new official for that stick check with the goalie at the beginning. All right. Eye protection and other things that are mandatory. Did I just lose? Hold on.
No, you're good. You're good.
You're good.
Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so mandatory equipment, so they have to have their eye protection. They have to have a mouth guard. It cannot be white or clear at all, period. No exceptions, all right? We don't want it to look like teeth because we can't take a glance and know that it's inside their mouth where it needs to be if it looks like their teeth. So those youth girls, I mean, that's something we do have to be a stickler on, is something on this page, all right? Because this is protective safety equipment, all right? The color of uniform, one player, whatever, but this is big. So, you know, these are deal breakers for sure. Eye protection, mouth guard, gloves, if they choose to wear them is fine. Headgear, if they choose to wear them. And again, that would just be something that's covered when you talk to the coach at captain's meeting. Does all your equipment meet certification? And yes, this would be one that, you know, would be on there. Other medical devices, so something like, you know, if they had, you know, an injury, they're wearing a wrist brace, as an example, as long as, you know, they may have a piece of padding over it so that it wouldn't injure someone else, then that's fine. I mean, we haven't really run into any issues with that, but kind of use your best judgment. If you feel like it could be a danger, then it probably is, right? So, all right. Goalkeeper, what they have to have is their helmet with the face mask and a chin strap. A mouth guard, same, cannot be clear or white. Throat protection has to be like a separate piece from the helmet. It can be attached, but it's separate than the helmet itself. Gloves, padding on shins and thighs, and then the chest protector and leg protection. Now the shin is a newer one that changed last year, I believe, at the high school level. That I think now that's optional. Is that correct? Right, Linda?
Shin pads, that is correct.
Yeah, just for the shins. Yeah.
High school.
So
only.
high school only, yes. All right. A lot of times you'll see now they a few teams will do that, and then at the college level, different. So if you see any things at the college level, it may even be a completely different rule that we don't have. So just keep that in mind, that those rules are also different, even though it's a women's game. Field player, just at glance, goalkeeper. This is what kind of full uniform looks like. Mouth guard, yep. Goggles, helmet with face mask, mouth guard. And even though, yes, the goalie has the helmet on, they have to have a mouthpiece in. It's for concussion. So we always look for that in addition. And then again, shins is the only change from this most recent year, but that's only for high school as an option, okay? Chest protector, gloves.
Hey, Kendra.
Yes.
I had to step away, but there is something in here. It says red mouth guards ? So I'm not exactly sure what the question is. but I
Okay.
missed that.
On the previous slide, there was this. So a mouth guard just cannot be white
Yeah.
or clear or have any kind of graphics such as to look like teeth. So the red one here would be fine if they
Yeah.
have any color mouth guard is appropriate, to clarify
Yeah.
that slide.
Does that answer the question, Alana? Just making sure.
Hey, I also want to add to that for the mouth guard, and I see this mostly at youth level, that it cannot be attached to their goggles.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Point, yeah. There's a few of those.
And then what is the rule on eye black? It's a great question.
Mhm. I think now it's actually in there that it doesn't matter. I think as long as it's not a distraction. I'll make sure I have the.
There are specifics, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it's just a straight line from eye socket to eye.
Yeah, as long as it's not like a distraction, to where, I don't know, it could be considered, and this is maybe extreme, but like taunting or intimidating another player, then that is something that's newer in our rule book as an allowance, if you will. But yeah, that is a good one because we don't see it hardly ever. Sometimes, like a playoff game when they're trying to be fierce and they do kind of some different fun things as a team, but that's a good one. Okay, so the ball, it can be yellow, bright orange, or lime green, must have this NOCSI stamp on it. So pretty much all of the ones that did not previously have this new standard are out of rotation, even on for the coaches to have in part of their ball bag. So it's fairly rare that you might see it, but we always have to check that it has this standard stamp on it, and the stamp looks a little bit different. If you look at this green ball, it still has it, but it's a little different look in the brand of the ball. Okay, but definitely we want to look out for that, and that would be our game ball. A lot of times if they throw extra balls on the boundary line, you know, and the players will go grab one, occasionally that could be the one that is missed because it came from the depths of the ball bag that the coaches threw out there. So, you know, definitely take a peek at it, you know, stoppage of play, and make sure. And if we have to switch that out, then that is, again, one that we would do so. Okay. All right. So kind of summary with what we've discussed so far. Your official, you're going to arrive about 30 minutes prior to your game. You're going to inspect the field and the goals and conduct your pregame meeting with your partner. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Go over the duties with scorer and timer, meet with your captains and the head coach, and then do your uniform equipment stick check for each team. So there's a lot. Those 30 minutes go quickly, and you know, a lot of times you'll have to stop the teams from their warm up to get them to bring it in, so you have time to go through, you know, the stick check and so on. Especially some of those teams come with seems like 30 girls to check, and it takes some time. So, you know, we definitely want to arrive on time so we can get all those logistics in before the game. Okay. All right, so here's some questions, and we'll go over these together. Okay, I'm going to throw them all up there, and you can just jot down true or false. We'll take maybe 1 minute and then briefly discuss. Go. Okay, the silence is killing me. Let's go ahead and jump on it. So, a flat bottom goal cage is legal and needs no padding. True or false? Chime in. Anyone, chime in. I will call on you on Wednesday for sure. So this is practice.
True.
True, correct. The ball may be orange. True or false?
True.
True, good. The winner of the coin toss may choose, we didn't talk about this quite specifically yet, but may choose an end of the field to defend first. True or false?
True.
Yes, bonus question. What else do they get to choose from now?
Alternate possession.
Yes, very good. So that's their choice to either pick AP or choice of end, and then the other team would take the other. Very good. And then lastly, a player stick may have a mesh pocket. I think I spoke to this. It wasn't in the verbiage on the slide. True or false?
True.
True, and that's just within the last recent year. So that's been an allowance across the board, not just the youth or the goalie. All right, very good job, guys. Okay, so that sums up that Prezi. Let me go back to my email and see. I had something on pregame discussion. Okay, let's look at this one and this one. Okay, we might save this one for a little bit later. Okay.
Hey, somebody has their hand up, but it says
Okay.
you. But I don't know if maybe there's
Just
another
me?
Kendra.
Oh, get out of here. That'd be awesome. Okay, let me go back to.
Is there another Kendra?
Well, I don't have an additional question.
There is another Kendra. Let me try and find out.
Yes.
Sorry. Kendra, do you have a question? The other Kendra?
Yes, I was just
Okay.
wondering if, like, this like PowerPoint is anywhere for us to access as well.
I haven't, I did not include it in your materials, but if you feel like it would be also helpful, then I can send that out. So if you want to just chime in to the chat, and then we'll talk about that offline with my group, that would be fine, okay?
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, so tell me, I pulled up another document. I'm going to go back to the meeting and then, oh, my hand is up. Oh no, it's another K.
No,
But I
I
see it now. Okay, there it went.
Yep.
Okay,
I took it out.
let's see, pregame. Okay, pregame responsibilities. We got it?
Got it.
Okay, so just a little bit more detail about kind of what we've discussed so far. So we've got your attire. So we talked about all the stuff, whistle, flags, card, and so on. Your accessories, your black on black, shirt tucked in. You need to be neat, presentable, on time. We probably need to add also that, again, your shorts are not, booty shorts. Okay, girls, like this has been a thing. So I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's not running shorts, okay? All right, your pregame discussion with partners. So let's talk about some of the things that you want to look at discussing when you get to the field, with those few minutes that you're walking, the field with each other, checking the lines and so on. So, the field coverage, and we'll talk about, specifics on the 2-person system and administration, all that next time, but just to kind of get it out there, right? And, you don't have to hit every single one of these topics every single game, but there's definitely going to be things that, oh, I had a game and this came up. So now my next game, I want to make sure that I'm aware of that being a potential to happen, right? We still see brand new things every time, even as long as we've been officiating, some of us here. So, your field coverage, your penalty zone, penalty administration. So you might go over a few major minor foul setups, especially being new, that you want to kind of just talk through quickly before the game starts. Your shared areas, how you're going to help your partner. So one thing, that I discuss with my partners is that I'm pretty subtle with my communication, but I will definitely give you eye contact, or if I give you some sort of hand motion, it'll be down low. All right, so it's not looking like a distraction, like a foul signal or something like that. Directional signals, your foul signals, you might want to go over a few of those for review before the game. We'll look at those again in the class later on. Your offsides, 8-meter setups, different unusual situations. So again, maybe you came off a game and you had a really unusual call that had to be made. You might want to mention that to your partner. This is how we did it. I was able to look it up. Maybe we should have done it this way, something like that. That does happen occasionally where, maybe you awarded the ball at this position, but it really should have been at this position on the field instead. Spot of the ball versus spot of the foul, something like that, okay? False starting, if there's any clock issues. So along with all the rules and all the other things you're trying to manage, we also have to manage the clock. That comes more into play with the upper level games in high school, but you're also managing the sideline decorum, the clock, making sure that it's running when it needs to be running, stopped when it needs to be, especially with free movement and those kind of things now as well. Substituting on the fly, players are coming and going, how many players are supposed to be on the field, injuries, minor fouls, and so on. So lots of things that could be up for discussion that you might want to get out of the way. Then you also are walking the field. We try to have our chats while we walk the field. You walk the field together, look at the lines, the dots, make sure they are marked. Oftentimes the dots or the hanging hashes may not be marked on the field at all, in which case you need to tell the team. They can grab maybe some chalk or some spray paint that they have, and they could easily, you can help them walk that off, and they could mark those quickly. You check the nets to make sure there's no holes or loose stringing to the posts. Pace off the arc and fan for the distance. Look at all the hash marks, any potential injuries for holes in the field, sprinkler heads. You're going to deliver all that information at the captain's meeting. So if you walk your field, and like I mentioned earlier on the soccer field, and there's soccer goals are right up to the end line, you're going to tell the teams, hey, we're going to be really mindful of calling the boundary because we don't want you to roll into those soccer goals. So be mindful of that. Tell your team to look out for them also, so that you know that they're there on this field. Also, the lines are going to be black all the way around, but they're red on the interior. So that means that the outside lines of the field, end line, sidelines are black, but the circle and the 8 and 12 meters maybe are red. So you want to tell the teams that information. There's a sprinkler head at the 30. Okay, fine. You know, those kind of things you also deliver to the teams for the captains to share with their teammates. You check in with the table, make sure they know what they're supposed to be doing. Do they have a horn or not? Is there a clock or not? Kind of go over the basics for that. And then you go through your captain's meeting with your partner, talk to the coach, they certify their equipment. This paperwork business, that's something we don't deal with anymore. Everything's digital for us now. Goalie has to have a jersey over the pads, so we put that in here because it often gets overlooked. And then you do your coin toss for AP or possession. Go through your stick check. Lastly, you're checking the players for all those things we just went through, jewelry. Even the little kids, that's also a deal breaker, guys. We cannot have jewelry. They cannot tape their jewelry. They cannot get those new little ears pierced and tape over those earrings. They cannot. They just can't. There might be crying, and it's unfortunate, but we can't budge on that either. And if one of us budges, then that makes all 50 of our officials plus look bad. We cannot do that. We have to support each other, and it's just a no. It's just the rules. It's not a big deal. It's the rules. Okay. And then, you know, the goalie, all that business, we're checking all that. So it's a lot. It's a lot of things to go in your pregame, but, you know, go through it a couple times and then it will definitely become second nature. Okay. I think we are good for right now. At a good pause. If there's anything that came up in the chat with any of that stuff, or my team wants to chime in on for these last couple topics, then our last topic, we might get a little further, but what's scheduled at least today is timing, scoring, and then starting and restarting play, maybe some boundaries. I think that's all in the same Prezi. We'll just kind of start with that next one and see. I did stop sharing,
Nothing's
right?
in the chat, Kendra.
Okay. All right. Linda, anything else
Nope,
right now?
not right now.
Okay, so do we want to take maybe, what, like 5-8 minute break? Be back just before 8, and then we'll start again at 8 o'clock. Is that good for everybody? I don't know if y'all want to pause the recording. I think whoever set it up needs to do that, but that might be a consideration. And we'll see everybody back at 8 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Okay, take a pause. Hello, everyone. Hi.
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 It's so weird. I'm a little sad. I mean, I myself am not on camera, but I can't see anything when I'm presenting. But I'm a little sad nobody's faces are on here. But don't worry, I will get you on Wednesday. And you think I'm joking, but I'm a teacher, so it'll be a good time.
Some of them had the cameras on at the beginning, but I
Okay.
think once we had some issues with the presentation, they got turned off.
It's just it's so strange still. I mean, I know we did this all in COVID, but still. Okay, so we're gonna roll right into. Okay, I was getting really good at going between things. Hold, please.
Got this.
I know. Okay, game and timing procedures. So just again, everyone, as a heads up, you are in your workbook. We have gone through parts or rules rather 1, 2, and 3 so far. So kind of correlating, and we'll get copies to you and probably use it as a little review in class on Wednesday. So you should kind of go over your documents. And we are starting correlation about page 9 of your workbook. And this is the level 1 workbook. Youth will be similar. The order, of course, will be the same, but we're on rule number 4, and we're going to do an activity also with this section. So my next PowerPoint is game and timing procedures. So let me pull up this, and I think it should be showing now. Yes. Okay, I'm going to roll. I think it's showing.
Yes, it's showing.
Okay. Game and timing
Showing.
procedures. Okay, thank you. So timing and time factors. So again, lots of just information dump. We'll get into the good stuff on Wednesday when we can do some activities and hands-on with rules and setups and so on, and get to talk in person. But stay with me. We're almost halfway through the whole thing, including next time. So playing time, 15 minutes divided into 2 halves. This, of course, correlates to the high school. The youth has different timing. We'll hit youth kind of as a separate entity with a few specifics to that game. The rules are all the same, again, with the exception of there's a few alterations on some things because it's a developmental level, all right? But basically, we want you to know the rules as they are in the girls' rule book, and then we will adjust to the youth in a separate section, okay? So for the high school, we have two halves, total of 50 minutes. Halftime can be anywhere up to 10 minutes. We usually offer 5, 7, or 10, but it generally, in the rule book, it is 10 minutes, okay? And so at captain's meeting, we will hit that. Hey, coaches, what do you want for half, 5, 7, or 10? A lot of times, you know, those teams are ready to get in and out. If the weather is nice and they may not have any issues with subbing, then they'll go ahead and just do a 5 minutes to get the game moving and keep going. But some of those hot months, they'll take their 10 minutes and that's what they're allowed to. All right, so players have to change ends for the second half. The clock stops on an official's timeout after each goal. This is in the high school game, unless it goes to running clock, which means then there's a 10-goal differential. And then the last 2 minutes, this rule changed just last year also with if it's, well, always if it's more than 10 goals, then it goes to the running clock. So whether it's whatever time in the game, okay? But if it goes to 9-goal differential, then you would stop the clock after goals again and then back to running clock at 10 goals. So sometimes that time management, like we spoke to in the last Prezi, you know, it's also part of our role is to know what's the score in case we're in a game, we have to pay attention to that, okay? Official timeouts we can take in the case of illness, accident, injury. We take that also when we're issuing a card or any unusual circumstances, if there happens to be an animal on the field or someone's stick breaks in the middle of play. I mean, that's going to cause an unfair advantage, which is really one of our roles with safety. So, you know, we're concerned with that. Stop the game, officials timeout. So no stick chats are allowed during our timeouts. We take the timeout for our own purposes. Team timeouts. Each team are allowed their 2 timeouts that do not carry into overtime. They get a separate one for overtime. Each team is permitted one during their overtime. The head coach or any player can call this timeout, and you can call a timeout after a goal is scored or when requesting that the team has possession of the ball. So they do more of that now, even though that rule's been in place for quite a while, where they can just have a possession timeout. But a lot of times it's tricky for them to get our attention if play is blowing and going. So, ideally they're supposed to have a horn on the sideline. They tell the table, blow the horn, and that indicates to us that there's a timeout. So just be mindful of kind of that plan before you go on the field. That's something at your pregame. Do you have a horn you're going to blow for substitutions? Otherwise, have the table do this to get our attention, or whatever that may look like. Okay, but definitely in those competitive games, you want to have that kind of lined out. For the youth level tournament play in this fall, it's not really going to be an issue. But just kind of generally speaking, that's something else that we want to have in that pregame and to manage on the sideline. Accident interference, something unusual. You end up with an injury. You've got some animal on the field. We've had some. I was at a game. There was a goose that was on the field. This was up in the Midwest. So, unusual weather, things like that. We may have to stop the game. If a foul has occurred, the penalty would be administered, and we will go ahead and set it up so that it would stop, the position of at least the two involved in the foul. And then we can, pause if we have to leave the field, for instance. If there's, weather, we would take a mental snapshot of what was going on for that, jot it down. If no foul was involved, the ball is given to the player in possession of the ball, or nearest when it was stopped. Okay, so if we have to call a timeout, no one has the ball at all, then it
Hey, Kendra, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I thought it was just mine. There you go.
You're back.
Oh, you guys, I had such good things to say. Okay.
Well, and we do have a question, and I think it was before your thing went out, but if we want to go back a couple slides too, and then you can kind of restart. It'll be perfect timing.
Great.
The question is, with 2 minutes left, does the clock stop for penalties or just goals?
Okay, Linda, with college, which rule book are we in?
Yes. So the change last year, yes, it stops in the last 2 minutes for CSA, in the critical scoring area.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes. Okay.
And officials timeouts, which would be cards, alternate possession, restraining line, and team timeouts.
Yeah, team timeouts.
Yep.
Okay, good clarification. Even for me, the different rule books, some recent changes these last years. Okay, team timeouts. Let me make sure that I didn't say anything. I just kind of spoke through this. Okay, so essentially, if the foul's occurred, we want to make sure the right person gets the ball and the penalty is assessed. If there's no foul on one of these funky circumstances, then we're just going to give it to closest player, or if they already just have it, there's no foul, and we're going to play on. Essentially, we're just going to start the game again. All right, so no foul involved. If they're equidistant, we call the AP for sure. So suspended or interrupted game. So it's considered legal and complete when 80% of playing time has elapsed, whether a game's interrupted or continues on the same day, or if it's suspended and continues on another day, it would restart at the point of interruption. So Linda, we did that crazy game that year, right? At least we started it, I think, with the Lightning. And
yes.
Allison and I finished it. So I did have a game, and it's pretty rare, but it was a playoff game, so they wanted to finish it, even though we could have considered it legal and complete. But there was weather, and we delayed. Ultimately, we had to stop the game, and we replayed it. We played the rest of it like 2 or 3 days later. So that was a lot that we had to take note of. Who had the ball? What was the score? How much time was left? Blah, blah, blah. But earlier in the season, or for any kind of, scrimmage play, something like that, then 80% though is counted. If the teams can finish it up at another date, fine, but good luck getting officials and all that scheduling sometimes to get that done. I know that can be a challenge as well, but nonetheless, it does happen. But for record keeping purposes, 80% is what we technically are looking for. Lightning disturbances. So when you hear thunder, lightning, see it obviously, then there is a 30-minute delay after the last thunder is heard or a strike of lightning is seen. So Lynn and I had a different game last year. We were hanging out in Prosper for a good while, waiting on this as well. And as soon as you see another lightning strike or then you hear the thunder, you got to stop and stop the timer and start all over 30 minutes again. All right, so it can delay quite a while depending on what's passing through. Okay, but those teams have to get off the field. Everyone has to get off the field. Fans out of the bleachers, all that business, and that's pretty important as well. So it is what it is. No deal. It's a deal breaker. Can't go light on that call either. Each time it's heard or seen, 30-minute clock is reset. A lot of the teams have their own monitoring system for this, or a parent may be running a tracker on their phone, so that helps us, when we're in the game, if we don't see something, if thunder hasn't started, but you can see the lightning, then they can help us out with that. Overtime procedures. So you take a 5-minute rest after regulation, you call the captains back up, and you do the toss all over again. Now, the visiting captain calls again, and they get their choice of ends. Now AP continues from wherever it was, and then you play a sudden victory game. Now it can last, depending on if no one scores, then it can last a while, but the timing will go as such. So there's 6 minutes, you play 3 minutes, they change ends, and then you play the other 3 minutes, no subbing or coaching or anything, like no halftime, anything like that. And then you restart with the draw. You just change ends and go again, 3 minutes. And then if it is still set, no one has scored, then they take a 3-minute rest and you do it all over again. Okay? So it could go pretty quickly or it can take a while. It just kind of depends. All right. Substitutions. Players sub freely throughout the game during play or after a goal. So remember what we talked about earlier for the sub box, they have to be imminently subbing if they are in that substitution area. Otherwise, they need to just step right outside the line until they're ready to go in. They have to go in and out of the box. One player has to be all the way off the field before the other player can go on. The reason for that is because it's illegal to have too many players on the field. Players, there's that, must wait at the time a player is suspended or ejected. So suspension would mean they are there for a yellow card. Ejection would mean they are there for a red card. No sub will be allowed, right? They have to play man down for the length of that period, penalty period. And then a sub may replace, though, an injured player. So if there's an injury, they can get a sub to come on for that. So another snap of the bench area to see the penalty area where those cards and then the subs would be going as well. So typically we would have that penalty card serving player be kneeling right in front of the table so the subs can still move freely in front of them in that TSA. Okay. Illegal substitution. Here's some quick hits. One of these rules I think also changed for 2023. I don't know if it's on this slide, but it was about players in the middle. So we'll see if that comes up. But nonetheless, too many players on the field, an extra player on the field, obviously a player who enters without going through the sub area. Now, a lot of these particulars, again, for fall ball, the newer teams at whatever level, the youth teams for sure. I mean, we're not going to, hit them with an illegal substitution, because they don't go through the sub box. We're going to remind them to do that, and you can remind them, and then maybe, as the season progresses, or if it becomes a problem where it's interfering with other things that you need to be calling for safety purposes, certainly, you want to make that call. But we want the kids to play. They're learning. The coaches are learning. So you just need to, we call it preventative officiating, where we kind of remind them of the rules as we're officiating these youth games so that everyone is learning together. And a lot of times our newer officials included, right? So, do be mindful of that. But the higher levels, if they're entering, just from, they're playing down on defense and they just walk to the sideline as a sub, no. So, you can still tell them about it, maybe one time, and then tell them no more for sure at those higher levels. Okay, you can hit them with a penalty. Let's see, suspended player, they can't go in too early after serving their yellow card. Let's see, a red card, same thing. If they're listed incorrectly on the rule book or scorebook, that would be something also for the table to be, checking into. Should an illegal sub occur, we call a timeout, remove that illegal substitute, and then award the penalty. Again, we'll get into some of those penalty specifics the next session.
Hey, Kendra, a question came up on the chat about the weather delay. So how long would you wait on a disruption before calling the game?
Okay, that's a good one. So a couple things to keep in mind are, is there use later for the field? Is there a game that's happening later that we may need to talk to the coaches about? Well, we can only delay it X amount of time, even if the weather clears up, because this other game is already happening and it cannot be accommodated for us to stay. That might be something to consider, but that would be something with the coaches you would need to discuss. If the official can't stay, then maybe they can't stay. Definitely that would be something to discuss. I think it's kind of a case-by-case basis. If it's 30 minutes, an hour, that's happened often enough. You just hope by then, is the weather really going to be moving out, or are we just going to be sitting here another 30, et cetera? So I think after, one delay, if it definitely isn't looking like it's starting to clear up, or within another one, like if it restarted, another time or two, then you could have that conversation with the coaches on, okay, are we going to give it till, 8 o'clock, and then, we'll have to reschedule it to rain out or something of that nature.
The coaches are also pretty good about looking at the radar, monitoring the situation as well with you as officials.
Yeah, and nobody wants to cancel, ourselves included, because, we're already out there. We want to work and get the game in and all that. But, so I think we would all just try to do the best to work the situation that made the most sense for everybody. So the coaches and the officials could chat about that. Good question. I hope that was enough detail. Okay, so scoring. All right, so a goal is scored when the whole ball passes over the goal line between the goalposts. So that's the line, again, that is like the plane, think geometry of the goalposts. The ball's been shot with a legal cross from an attack player. It goes off the cross or maybe body of a defender. All right. And then it's released before the time expires. All right. So that's something, I think it was last year that change was made, maybe, where
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. So it has to actually be released now and not just cross the goal line. So that adds like another layer for us to make sure, that we're really eyes on ball to see if the ball was released or not before the timer went out. And then we also have to follow it to see then if it's a legal goal, right? But, the ball can rest on that goal line, and if it doesn't wholly cross it, the goalie can still pick it up and clear it out. So just keep that in mind, especially some of the little girls. They may not know some of those goalie roles, that they have, all that space to themselves only in there, and they can, pick the ball up, use their hand, put it in their cross, and then clear it out. So we try to help them with that at those younger levels. It is not scored when it goes through a non-player. So we, the official, it cannot ricochet off of us and score a goal. If it comes off the body of an attacker, if the attack player steps into the goal circle, so a goal circle violation. The foul by the attack occurs on the shot. So if there's a cardable foul, which are some of these listed here, goal circle violation, offside, some of those we'll get into the penalty administration next class. An illegal cross. So if the pocket depth was in question, the coaches could call a stick check, and then we would check the stick to see if it was too deep, and that goal may be taken away. And then the ball may enters the goal from the attacking team's goalkeeper. Goalies cannot score a goal, period. And if you think about it, their cross is not, legal to score a goal anyway. It's not a field cross, right? It's different specifications anyway. All right. Starting and restarting play. So moving right along, kind of chunking the material here. So each half of the game or overtime period, and after each goal, we start with a draw. So any number of players up to 12 may be on the field. Here's some X's and O's to kind of get a peek at what's going on. So team X versus team O, you've got your two goalkeepers, and then you'll see there are 3 pairs between the restraining lines and everyone else on either side. Okay, they cannot cross the restraining line until there is possession with one of these scrolls here in the center. So the players taking the draw shall be in the center. They toe the line. We'll go over more specs on your field rating with this setup, but the players taking the draw, they toe the line on either side, or even side by side. Their sticks just have to be in correct placement. Here, 2 of their other teammates may be outside on the circle, and then everyone else is between the restraining lines, like you see on either side. The goalies are not allowed between the restraining lines, though here. They have to be on their one side, okay? When we are setting up the draw, you want your pocket to be open to their own goal and right side down. So this red player, or this red cross, her goal is behind her in this instance. It's right side down, and then the girls can stand on either side of their stick once the sticks are in place correctly. Okay, so they can either face each other like you see in the picture, they could stand on the same side, either way. So both are drawing right hand here. The sticks really should be more parallel. This is a kind of an older picture, but the sticks should be parallel here as well. One is drawing the left hand, one drawing the right hand. So notice the sticks are in the same position, right side down, but the girls are on the same side. And then just looking at the setup, we want to make sure that it's in that third at the top, of the crosses when we're setting it together. So the crosses are held in the air, parallel to and above the center line. First motion has to be up with those crosses. No players may step on or over the restraining line until we give the possession. So you should see our arm signal as well as hear an audible from the official. Players taking the draw are motionless except for their head may turn and watch the official. Waiting for that whistle. No players can step on or over the center circle, and then players may, though, reach over to play the ball as long as their foot or body really is not on or over the restraining line. So they can reach across and grab it. They just can't step on or over it. Okay.
Hey, Kendra, I just wanted to add to that. So on the no players may step on or over the restraining line before the official signals possession, just kind of adding to that new this year, that's regardless of how many players are in between that restraining line.
That's right.
So,
that's one of the changes coming. Yes. Yep. That's good. So, and part of our job is to identify, safety as well as who's getting advantage. So it kind of makes sense. It doesn't really matter how many players are already there. If that player steps on or over, that could have her gaining advantage before she's able to get it. So, always go back to those kind of 2 basic things as a new official is, the safety, and then is someone getting advantage, because you may not know what the rule is called, but you do know that that's like incorrect for one of those 2 reasons. Thank you. I knew there was going to be a couple pop up. Okay, So we'll set the draw. That was, you know, on an in-person meeting. So we'll do some of that when we get together. Okay. So restarting play. The whistle is used to stop and start play. When starting play again, the official will give a visual arm signal, his or her, by raising the arm above the head. Okay, now a lot of times we don't see this so explicitly now because of the free movement and self-starts. Okay, because the girls are just ready to go. So you may see us tweet or hear us tweet, or maybe not even at all that, right? Because the girls already know we did the tweet. We don't need to tweet again for them to go, which was more in the nature of, you know, before they added the self-starts. But, you know, definitely for, you know, when there is a stoppage or there's a card, something like that, we definitely use this mechanic. We stop the play. When we restart play, our arm goes up. The player that's fouled will stay with the ball. Player who fouled will be directly behind if it is a major foul, 4 meters, or they're just 4 meters away in their approach if it's a minor foul. But again, a lot of this is going to come in next class because with free movement, there's some kind of details around this verbiage that we need to speak more specifically to. Okay, but basically speaking, minor away, major behind. Okay, all other players can move wherever as long as they also give that clear space of 4 meters. So free positions. When you have a penalty, then the player gets a free position. So a lot of times in your rule books and how we will discuss in our training, you may just hear FP. All right, so the violation for any rule is a foul. The penalty we say is a free position. And then the player committing will always move 4 meters or give that space depending on the type of foul that it is. A no free position is closer than 4 meters to the boundary. So if there's a foul situation, they have to come in 4 meters. If it's just a boundary ball, it's only the 2 meters. So we'll get into that business a little bit more later. 8 meters around the goal, we have the dots when it's behind the goal, or we have the hash marks when there's something set up in front of the goal or in front of the goal line extended. All right, so no closer than 8 meters to set up a free position in that area. All right, our self-starts, still a little relatively new for some, but you've got your 2 teams here. There's your official. All right, so we've had a penalty. The settled stance is, I mean, technically they're supposed to kind of take a settle. I think that's still the language, but, you know, they will be quick, some of the teams, when you get into those higher levels particularly. All right, but for a self-start, ball is outside of the critical scoring area. The game clock is running, so there can't be like a card maybe issued where the clock is stopped, just as an example, and the players go on a self-start. We can't be doing that. The ball's within a 6 length from spot of the foul. I think there was some new language on this. Was that the other one, Linda, for this one?
Yeah, that is. It's
right.
It just allows a player who is fouled outside the critical scoring area to take the free position and self-start within 4 meters of the spot of the foul.
Within 4 meters. So I know you're probably wondering why is some of this information still, so to speak, last year, but you know, initially you're going to be taking a test based on these rules still, and then we all will update in January. So even though we may try some of these rules in the fall, you know, these are still the rules that are currently out there that you'll be taking that first test on. And then we'll get these few changes in January that Linda has kind of said, we've said a few on the fly tonight, that will change a little bit for the actual spring season, and we'll all retest in January with those new interpretations. So just kind of take some of this as a grain of salt, and that this is still what you will be testing on technically for your training here for the rest of this year. But nonetheless, the attack initiating the self-start can pick up the ball. They would take it back quickly to the spot of the foul and then self-start. Teammate may also pick up the ball and return it to the ball carrier, so she may self-start from a legal position. And if that offensive player goes, she doesn't have to wait on that defender to go behind. If she's ready to roll, she can go ahead and self-start. Okay, so a fouled player options, restart play immediately, so they can pick up the ball and go. They can wait for everyone to give them their 4 meters of clear space, which is, still something that those players need to be ready to be moving out and give them. Or they can wait for a whistle. I would say for that last one, they typically rarely wait for a whistle unless they just don't know what to do. So you may see some of that in the younger teams or some of the newer players or programs. And, if you can tell they're not self-starting, or if you tell them you can self-start and they don't really, use that or know what you're speaking to, then go ahead and blow your whistle. So then that gives them the indication, okay, go. All right. And then you can maybe talk to them, halftime after the game, like, remember, coaches and players, your self-start, you can do da-da-da-da. Okay. Play will commence, though, or begin once the ball carrier steps or passes. Repeated self-starting beyond the playing distance. And like Linda spoke to, that's going to change a little bit this year, though. You could get, you'll get a verbal warning, I would say, for us, for sure, and then a delay game could result later on. So proactive or preventative officiating we may use, especially at the youth levels, so that we can get them to learn the rules as we go, a little bit at a time. Okay? All right. Defensively, for the self-starts, after a foul is called, the offender must initiate movement 4 meters behind or away. So that player that fouled needs to be ready to move away, all right, as directed by the official, and they may not engage the ball carrier until play has started up again. Okay, they cannot pivot or rock, they cannot cradle, they can't pump the cross in order for that to be counted as starting play, all right? So it has to actually, they need to be moving to begin play, all right? Repeated failure to move away, again, could result warnings, delay of games. All right. When are we allowed or not allowed to self-start? So this slide, we are looking at self-start is not an option. So we mentioned already when the game clock is stopped, could be a card, could be coming from a timeout, something like that. An offsides call, also restraining line violation. It's a whistle start for that. A lot of times when some of these things happen, everyone, we say whistle start so that the players, oh, remember, I can't just take off. We go ahead and remind them so we don't have to give them another penalty for starting incorrectly. All right. We want them to get the ball when they're supposed to. All right. Fouls in the CSA, alternate possession. Oh, although that changed this year too, defensively, I think, but we'll get to that in the spring. Right. But for now, fouls in the CSA, just kind of as a general, alternate possession, whistle start, inadvertent whistle. If we have to stop play for any reason, if there's, we thought we had offsides and then we realized, nope, those 2 jerseys are just so similar in color, that was on the official. You're going to restart play, not a self-start. Okay, you whistle start that. And then, of course, if a goal is scored, then that would be a whistle start if you need to do anything after that. Okay, the foul for self-start is considered false start, would be how you would label that. We'll get into those, again, specific fouls next class, major and minor. All right, let's take a breath here as well. Anything coming up on the chat, team? Anything to add before we jump into AP?
So what age groups is self-start for? And that's going to be 5, 6 and up, correct?
All age groups.
All age groups. Okay, 1, 4 is too. So all age.
All age, but it may look a little different from those really younger youths than the 5th through 8th youth. All right, so you just need to keep, reminding them, yes, you can self-start. No, this is a whistle start. Just kind of make it a habit. As you are learning to officiate, because it'll help you also as the official learn when those things are appropriate. Okay, and you can also use your partner to help you get those rules down. So again, our first AP we talked about earlier, it goes at the captain's meeting. So they either have choice of end or choice of AP initially. All right, so that is indicated at the table by some sort of, we'll call it a token. Either it's a cone or it's, we've used anything from a water bottle, just something that everyone knows is the AP indicator. If it's somebody's random, like I've used my water bottle because I've got one big one, it's hot pink, and if we don't have anything else, I've used it before, and I just tell the coaches, table, we're going to use this for AP. They don't have a cone, they don't have anything else in the field, fine. It doesn't matter. Just everyone needs to be on the same page. Ideally, yes, it's a cone, something that the coaches already, or the team has, field administrator already has there, but whatever. We're not too worried about it as long as we know who's got what. The ball would go into the goal of a non-player. This is what indicates an AP is happening. All right, so the ball goes out of bounds as a result of a shot or deflected shot, and two opposing players are equally distant. All right, so we don't know who to give it to, which I can tell you should be extremely rare. You need to make sure you're in position to see who is closest, because likely if someone is closer, you just may not have been in the best position. But nonetheless, it can happen. Equally distant for a boundary ball, then we go to AP. If we cannot determine who caused the ball to go out of bounds, same thing, but you need to be in good position in order to identify those two things for sure. Ball may lodge in the clothing of a field player or an official. That causes a disadvantage. That's not really fair, but then again, it disrupts play, so who are we going to give it to? It's going to go to AP. We want it to be fair, right? Offsetting fouls occur. That's probably the most obvious one. Alternate possession there, and then if play is stopped and no player had possession and opposing players are equidistant, that was kind of in some language earlier, then that would be an AP situation there. Okay, if AP happens in the CSA, whether it's above or below the GLE is the goal line extended. So think about at the beginning of the presentation when we had that the CSA area marked with the dotted lines behind, and it traveled all the way around the fan, and then all the way down behind the goal. So anywhere, if AP happens in the CSA, it's awarded at the dot. Okay, so even if in the CSA in front of the goal, it comes back to the dot. Okay, that's just always how it is, AP in that area. Okay. Here's some animations for boundary self-starts. So Team X has the ball. So ball goes out of bounds. The team is awarded possession that it went off of X. So Team O gets the ball, and then they can run onto the field with the ball to restart play. So they don't have to stop at the boundary and then start again. They can just run onto the field and then commence. Now, what they cannot do is pass from out of bounds. That's essentially playing from out of bounds. Can't be doing that. Okay, and then there's that animation there. Okay. Now, if the ball goes out of bounds as a result of a foul, then it's different than just a boundary ball, right? It's now a foul. Okay, so then we have to do a little setup when they come in, bring them in 4 meters, and then we can commence play from there. Okay. We just have to make sure though that the penalty is assessed properly and that they're given their 4 meters of space. Coming into the field also 4 meters as well. All right, so a little more detail on boundaries. When the ball's out of bounds, when a player steps on or over the line, body or cross touches the ground or is outside the line, and a loose ball touches the ground on or outside the line. Okay, any of those situations could be boundary. When that happens, whoever last touched it, they lose their possession. Okay, now on a shot or deflection from a shot, the player or cross closest to the ball will be awarded possession. Something that happens often is if the ball's deflected on the goal and then there's players behind the goal and maybe it hits one of their crosses, but they aren't able to get possession, right? They don't have clear possession. It still goes to the closest player. Okay, that's not considered an additional touch, if you will, by whatever team that is, and then it goes opposite team again. Okay, so that happens occasionally. So if no team actually gains possession, clearly, then still on that deflected shot, it just goes to the closest player. Okay, play is restarted when the player awarded the ball runs onto the field with the ball. Again, no passing. So you'll notice here, you see girls still do this when the ball goes after a shot, and they'll just run after it, extending their cross. So it's closest to where the ball crosses the line, not whose body is closest to the line necessarily. All right, it's who's closest where the ball actually goes out of bounds. Okay. And there's our little zebra. We're halfway there. Any questions on boundaries? And you'll notice that they're extending their sticks here, okay, as an extension of their body, but it still is closest to wherever it went out, not necessarily the body of. Okay. All right, so you're halfway there. We finished halfway through the training materials. We have tons to cover still on Wednesday. Any questions so far? That was a lot. I talked a lot. I understand it's virtual. I get it. You did this with school for 2 years. A lot of you, I get it. Work, same. Talk to me. How are we doing? Team, anything to add?
There's nothing in the chat. You did a great job, Kendra. Thank you. Anyone with questions, please chime in. Okay, here's one. Hold on. Let me go back. If the ball is halfway over the GLE, is it still a goal?
Sorry, I had muted. Okay, so GLE would be the goal line extended, which technically is on the outside of the post. So if it's halfway on the goal line, which would be in the goal, just to specify, where we're at. The way it's worded, I'm going to say no, because the ball has to wholly cross that line. So if the ball rests on that line, then still not a goal. That's some of the markings with the goal circle and that line are a little different than other lines on the field. For instance, boundary, it's out of bounds if it's on or over. Offsides, it's offsides if you're on or over. The goal circle, the goalie can play the ball on the goalie line. It's the goalie's ball. Okay, players can't get it, but the goal circle is the goalie. All right, as well as the goal line is also the goalie as long as it hasn't wholly crossed that plane.
Yep. And what if the ball hits off the inside of the crossbar?
Well, I think that is for our sharp officiating eyes to determine if it wholly crossed the plane where that line would come up through those posts or not. I think it would be extremely rare that it would cross the crossbar and not actually continue to go in just by means of geometry and English and all that, but in English meaning angles. But I mean, could it happen? Maybe. But I mean, you would have to be right on it to see that it actually wholly crossed the line. I'm assuming that has happened in a game that was called. It's probably the question there. But any other details, Beth? I mean, Linda, pretty rare that I think that would happen. But
no, I agree. You answered it the way. I mean, it definitely. You got to be right there to see it. So, but typically. If the ball goes out of bounds due to a foul, then would it be self-start? And Brad answered yes. A legal check definitely can pick up and self-start.
Yep, they would just come onto the field.
Mm-hmm.
We would want to make sure that the player would be, ideally they would be behind unless the attack just initiated the go, then yes, they could still self-start from there. Just like a foul anywhere else on the field, if it's able to be self-start, then coming in from a boundary, it could also be that foul. Just because it's a foul there, it could be self-start as well.
Yep.
Keep chiming in, guys. I'm going to pull up just a couple things to wrap us up this evening to tee us up for next time. So if there's any other in the chat, go ahead, and if you think it would be good to bring it up for the good of the group even, go ahead. Just give me like 2 minutes. Pull up a couple things to show to the screen. I've got something. Yes. Okay. So we're going to do one last little review, and it is, hold on team, let me pull it up. It is an activity. It was sent to you. It is called the, hold on, Game Timer Procedures and Review. Game timer, let me pull it up as well. And then it's just a multiple choice. We'll zip through that and then we'll check it, and then that should wrap us up. It'll be a good summary. And while you're working on that, I can get the other pieces loaded just for quick discussion. Okay, so let me share my screen, but you all should have this. It's again, the game and timing procedures. I think it's 20 questions, but it's multiple choice or true false. So it should be pretty quick and painless to answer quickly on your own. All right, let's see. Okay, so it should be up. You should have it as well. All right, but here's questions 1 through 8 showing on the screen, and then you should have it as well. So let's go ahead. You can just jot these down, scratch paper. We'll just take a couple minutes. We'll go through them, and then I just want to speak to kind of a little homework assignment for you to look over for next time, and then we will wrap it up for the evening. I'll leave this up just a couple more seconds here, and then I'll scroll up for a little bit and then scroll again. But this should be one that you all have in your attachments, if you can pull it up as well.
Kendra, what was the name of this attachment?
This is
Which one is
the
that one?
Game and Timing Procedures Review. I think the first part is 2022
2022, yes.
Game Timer Procedures and Review.
Thank you.
Okay, about 2 more minutes. Even if you don't finish, we'll still be able to talk through this together. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the other doc side by side, and then I'll reshare again. So give me just a second. Can we see? Are we seeing the same document again?
Yes.
Game time responsibilities. Okay, so
Yep.
let's just go through this as a group. A regulation game is 2 halves, and each half is how many minutes? And again, just get your microphones ready, peeps, and just chime in. Okay, so what are we looking at here for regulation? So what we spoke of today, how long is each half?
25 minutes.
25.
Good, 25 minutes. And don't worry about repeating answers, just chime in. I want us to get a little bit active. Let me know you're still with me. It's 9, we're gonna zip through. Good job. Halftime must always be 10 minutes long, true or false?
False.
Good,
False.
because coaches can agree on something else. Very nice. We often offer
False.
5, 7, or 10. What happens with the clock if a team is winning by more than 10 goals?
The clock runs.
Okay, good. So we have A, yes. Very good. What happens if score differential was 10 goals, then goes back to under 10? A, B, or C?
A.
Good. No longer running. We go back and forth depending on that differential. Who can request a timeout? A, B, or C?
C.
Yes. Good. Head coach or any player on the field. Which situation does not require an official timeout? You can just tell me the letter.
B.
D, very good. 3 seconds. So we talked about AP, inadvertent whistle. Sometimes we make a mistake or an error. We need to check on something. Offsides and a card, certainly all are an official timeout. Very good. How much game time for a complete game?
B.
80%.
Good, 80%. Overtime is determined by sudden victory, true or false?
A.
True.
So just for detail, true ultimately, right? As long as we go through that procedure of setting it up, right? With the next question, how long is each overtime period? A, B, or C for number 9?
B.
So we have 6 minutes. Let's see, number 9, 6 minutes, 2 3-minute periods, right? 2 3-minute halves, 6 minutes in duration. Yes, good. What happens at the end of the first overtime? And number 10, I think. Oh, there's not even any more. That's what we said. Overtime continues until we have that sudden victory winner, right? We do our 6 minutes and we keep repeating, and so on. So B for number 10. Number 11, how many players between the restraining lines? Maximum of A, B, or C? Number 11, C, right? They can have less, but maximum of 3. What players are not allowed between the restraining line? For number 12.
C.
Only Only the goalies are not allowed between. So C for that one. Good. 13, free position may be taken no closer than how many meters? 8 meters to goal. And then what about for a boundary if it's a free position? This one's kind of tricky. Free position is the key words there. So if we have a free position, that means there's a penalty. And if there's a penalty, what's our distance? 4 meters of free space. Okay. So 2 meters if it's just a boundary, 4 meters if there's a free position, 8 meters as far as related to the goal. Number 14, what 3 things are needed for a self-start? Number 14, we need what? The foul has to take place outside the CSA, yes. So A is true. What else? Restart is within the 1.5 cross lengths. So there's a little language with that changing this next year, but for now, yes. So A and C. And then also, let's see, the game clock is running, right? Everyone good with number 14? 15, if a player self-starts more than the playing distance, the player should, we didn't get into this per se, we're gonna reset and then allow a legal self-start. Now, if this continues to happen, then we may have other things go on, but otherwise we're just gonna reset and allow legal self-start. And then if they self-start and we know they shouldn't, then that might be a false start situation. Like if it was from a card or something like that. All right, 16, a player may self-start on an offside foul, true or false?
False.
False, good. Penalty administration for a self-start outside the CSA. We didn't get into this per se yet either, but I will tell you self-starting when a whistle is required is going to be that false start, and that's when the ball is turned over. So kind of what I just spoke to with that, okay? Number 18, teammate may pass the ball coming in, ball back to the ball carrier, so a player may self-start. True or false, that one is true. They can help get that ball where it needs to go. A little lighter colored jersey also always gets first AP. True or false? 19.
False.
False. That's silly. All right. That's just a that goes at our coin toss at the beginning for AP. On a shot, possession is awarded to the player that is
A.
20, closest to yes, the end line where the ball exits the field. Okay. Or no, closest to where the ball exits the field. So end line in there adds a little bit of too much leeway, but closest to where the ball exits the field. Now, if they're closest to the end line also, great. But we want to make sure they're closest to where the ball actually goes. And then lastly, timeout will be called for a card, alternate possession, inadvertent whistle, and it extends, offsides, or all the above. For a timeout, what do we think here? Meaning the official stops the time. Let me clarify that. Does the clock stop there? Not the clock doesn't stop per se, but we have there's no self starts on all that, right? Cards, AP, inadvertent. Well, inadvertent, they can self start afterward. Offsides, we don't allow the self start either. Okay. All right. So I know we're getting close to time, everybody. Thank you for that. That was a good little kind of wrap up for today. I did want to go back to the email that I sent just to reiterate for next time. I would like for you to review those things in your manual. All right, so you can go ahead and look at the manual and the rules that are going to be coming. So there's a rule reference sheet that was attached to your documents, and then that manual was also attached. That kind of gives you the nitty-gritty of what the rule book does not. So the rule book is very black and white. It tells you, rule 1 is this. Here's the different things, A through F, or what have you, of the nuances around it. But then the manual will go in and tell you the what if and all the different, at least some examples of scenarios about the different fouls that we call, so you have kind of a little bit of perspective on game actual situations. So I encourage you, please do your homework and at least read over those, even if it's just at a high level, to get some working knowledge that we can discuss further on Wednesday. We will have some handouts printed for you also on Wednesday. You can start working towards any of those other administrative items that I gave you the handouts for, as far as getting your official status with the USA Lacrosse, going in, starting your online rules course. Any of that is available to you. Use the document to log in and figure out where it is on your catalog of courses and so on for the e-learning to get to that course. I think all that information should be ready to roll and at your fingertips. So if you have anything you need along the way, though, please let us know. But we will otherwise reconvene in person at Parish. I'll send out the room number and all that business later, but Parish, just as a basic location, it is at Spring Valley and Midway, near Green Hill, as just kind of a basic area, if you know where that is in the Dallas area. So we will meet there at 6 p.m. on Wednesday in person. Bring whatever, lacrosse related you have as far as the materials. If you printed out anything or anything you have questions on, please bring that with you, but we will provide everything else. Beth, anyone else, any other details?
Yeah, there is a question if you're supposed to print out the manual. Obviously, that is great. If you can bring it and print, if it's printed out, it will allow you to kind of go through and highlight if you want to, but it's not required if you're able to bring something to be able to look at it too.
Yeah, like just to look at a digital copy. We will have the workbook copies for you, and I'll have a few other handouts. We're going to do some interactives on Wednesday. And then, like I said, we may use some as review from tonight as well. But just to get some working knowledge, we're going to talk all about rules and penalty administration and all those next time. It's a lot of detail, everything today, a lot of working knowledge for us and a lot of administrative items. But next time is going to be some, what I would call the good stuff, if you will, to go over and, get some discussion and all that kind of thing. Okay? But shoot us anything on the fly, what have you, along the way, and go ahead and get started on those materials and do your homework for Wednesday.
Yes, thank you all for being on tonight.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll see you on Wednesday, and just email us with any questions. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Thank you.